I want to dive in. Ms. Basham, you've dedicated most of your career to combating human trafficking, and I think no one would question your expertise in this field. How many human trafficking cases are prosecuted at the federal level in this country?
Yeah, so in 2023, it was around 1,000, and the year before that, it was around 1,600.
And during these prosecutions and your review of them, do you think that there are adequate protections for victims of human trafficking who may have been forced to commit nonviolent crimes by their traffickers?
No, there's a huge gap.
Do you think that that is a serious problem in our federal system of laws that we don't have those protections?
Absolutely, and I think it's covered in several fold, one through the vacatur and expungement, as I mentioned, but also through providing civil legal services at the federal level and allocating funding through the Office on Violence Against Women.
So that being said, this year, I reintroduced the Trafficking Survivors Relief Act, along with colleagues that really span the ideological spectrum. This is a truly nonpartisan piece of legislation. Is there, with that particular legislation, would that close some of the loopholes in our legal system and provide adequate protections for victims?
Absolutely, and one of the other ones I want to mention is the right for affirmative defense from the outset. So that is one of the biggest reasons, one of the biggest questions is, why would someone, be deemed both a victim of trafficking by the court and then at the same time want their crimes vacated? Well, the reason is that oftentimes they don't have the right to have that affirmative defense. And that affirmative defense is what makes it crystal clear to the judge and to the court from the beginning. It lets them really look at the case and say, is this a victim of trafficking? Instead, what happens is the crime is being prosecuted. So DOJ or whoever puts prosecutors who are, used to prosecuting white-collar crime. Like, they're not used to prosecuting necessarily trafficking cases. So they're focused on the crime, usually money laundering, bank fraud, those sort of things. And so when the focus is on that, then through the process, the victim actually, the survivor bubbles up, the real story bubbles up. And at that point, they're looking at two different things. And so that's what's really a huge problem. And so the affirmative defense is so critical, and that's what it really establishes from the outset.
Correct.
That's part of it.
And to be clear, I think most of our states, close to 50, have this at the state level.
Absolutely. I think it was 40, it might be 49 now. I think one state just crossed that finish line. And that is the biggest precedent that we have for this, because there are more trafficking convictions that actually fall at the state level. And we've seen that for over 10 years. So we've seen that actually states that implement this, they are not overrun with cases. And additional to that, they've actually strengthened, as Sherry mentioned, a lot of states like Arizona, they have actually strengthened their laws over the years.
Right, and this is obviously, so this legislation, nonpartisan, obviously 49 states have it, approaching 50. So when you look at, obviously it's pro-victim because it provides that affirmative defense, but it's also pro-prosecution, right? This is why prosecutors and sheriff associations, and they love it too, because, and why is that? Why do you think that they would want something of this magnitude?
It makes their job easier.
Correct, because they're able at that point to go after the real culprits, right? The real individuals who are behind the trafficking victim and go after these rings.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Chairman. With that, I yield back.